Hi boys and girls. Today we're going to read a story about Frog and Toad. Now this is a big book because it has lots of stories in it, but we're just going to read one story out of it. It's called Frog and Toad Treasury, and it's called Treasury because there's lots of books in here, but we're only going to read one story. Our author's name is Arnold Lobel, but there's two things we need to talk about before we read our story. Now the Frog and Toad stories are all about Frog and Toad that are best friends and they go on adventures together. Now I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the differences between frogs and toads. So I found this over here. This is a frog's foot and that is a toad's foot. So frogs have what's called webbed feet. Frogs have this right here between the toes is actually the web. It helps them to swim. Frogs actually are in water. Toads actually live more on land. Frogs live on land too, but they also can be in the water. Another difference in a frog and a toad are the size. If you look at this frog, he is more slender. He's not as big as the toad. The toad right here he's just larger. He's not, he's more plump, he's bigger. Another difference between frogs and toads is their skin. Frogs have more smooth skin and it's usually wet and slimy. And toads have more, it's dry and it's more bumpy. Okay? So that way that shows you some differences between frogs and toads, because a lot of times we think, well, aren't they the same? But they really aren't. They're different. Another thing we needed to talk about before we read our story is hibernation. We've talked a little bit about hibernation before. When animals hibernate, that means they sleep for a long time during the winter time because it's cold. Some animals that hibernate are snakes. I'm glad they hibernate. Bears. We hear about bears hibernating. Bees actually hibernate too. Well, frogs and toads hibernate also. And so we're going to hear about hibernation in this story. Now, Frog is going to try and wake Toad up from hibernating. And he's going to try and, he's going to play a little trick on him. So let's see about our story. The title of our story is Spring. And that's the season that we're in now. That's why we're reading that story today. Frog ran up the path to Toad's house. He knocked on the front door. There was no answer. Toad, Toad, shouted Frog. Wake up, it's spring. Aw, said the voice from inside the house. Toad, Toad, cried Frog. The sun is shining, the snow is melting. Wake up, I am not here, said the voice. Frog walked into the house. It was dark. All the shutters were closed. Toad, where are you? Called Frog. Go away, said the voice from a corner of the room. Toad was lying in bed. He had pulled all the covers over his head. Frog pushed Toad out of bed. He pushed him out of the house and onto the front porch. Toad blinked in the bright sun. Help, said Toad. I cannot see anything. Don't be silly, said Frog. What you see is the clear, warm light of April. That's the same month we're in right now. And it means that we can begin a whole new year together, Toad. Think of it, said Frog. We will skip through the meadows and run through the woods and swim in the river. In the evenings, we will sit right here on this front porch and count the stars. You can count them, Frog, said Toad. I will be too tired. I'm going back to bed. Toad went back into the house. He got into the bed and pulled the covers over his head again. But Toad, cried Frog, you will miss all the fun. Listen, Frog, said Toad. How long have I been asleep? You have been asleep since November, said Frog. Well then, said Toad, a little more sleep will not hurt me. Come back again and wake me up at about 1/2 May. Good night, Frog. So Toad was not ready to stop hibernating. He was still tired. He still wanted to rest. but Frog was ready. "But Toad," said Frog, "I will be lonely until then." Toad did not answer. He had fallen asleep. Frog looked at Toad's calendar. The November page was still on top. Frog tore off the November page. See, there's this calendar and it says November right there. He tore off the December page and the January page, the February page, and the March page. He came to the April page. Frog tore off the April page too. Then Frog ran back to Toad's bed. "Toad, Toad, wake up. It's May now." "What?" said Toad. "Can it be May so soon?" "Yes," said Frog. "Look at your calendar." Toad looked at the calendar. The May page was on top. We see the calendar. It has the month of May. "Why, it is May," said Toad as he climbed out of bed. Then he and Frog ran outside and to see how the world was looking in the spring. So, Frog played a little joke on Toad, tricked him, even though it was really still April. He made him think it was May, so he would get out of the bed and start enjoying the springtime. And the rest of the book is about the adventures that they take together. And we'll read some more stories later, but that was our introduction to Frog and Toad. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned about the differences between frogs and toads and about hibernation. If you want to look more of that up, go ahead and, with your parents or a guardian or a brother or sister, look some more things up on other animals that hibernate. Okay? I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.